President Trump says he is in perfect condition. Today, after his doctor's visit at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, the president took to Truth Social to say, in part, quote, "Just finished my 6-month physical at Walter Reed Military Medical Center. Everything checked out perfectly," end quote. More on that later in the show. And a showdown in the state of Texas. In just a few hours, polls will close in the Republican Senate primary runoff between incumbent Texas Senator John Cornyn and Trump-endorsed Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Texas Senator John Cornyn joins me in just a few minutes. And YouTuber Hassan Piker, known for his anti-Semitic rhetoric, is in trouble. Find out why he's in trouble and what kind of trouble he's in later in the show. But first, tomorrow it is all hands on deck. The White House says that tomorrow President Trump is heading to Camp David. There he will meet with his entire cabinet. All cabinet members are expected to be there, including outgoing Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. Camp David is the remote, highly secure compound in Maryland. It's about 65 miles north of the White House. So why meet there and not in a Situation Room in the White House? Suspicions are flying. Could the location of the meeting be related to something happening with Iran? And yesterday, the United States launched new strikes in Iranian missile sites and mine-laying boats. Retired Navy SEAL and former Deputy Commander, Central Command, Vice Admiral Robert Harward joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And tell me, what we struck yesterday, was that offensive or defensive?
Offensive. Defensive strikes on our behalf to ensure they cannot project that power and don't be a threat. But it was definitely our offensive operations against them to take out their capabilities.
Well, it has certainly drawn a response from the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, because they say that they would issue a decisive reciprocal response to any violation of ceasefire, and of course, if any offensive move would be a violation.
Well, that's what they've been saying ever since, and they're going to use what they have. But don't forget, we've been hitting them for quite some time. They're seriously diminished a lot of their capabilities, so they don't have a lot bang in the buck. And more importantly, tomorrow's meeting and what the president, he's bringing the whole cabinet together and deciding if they're going to finish this thing, if they're going to take it to the end. So their rhetoric is going to be tested here very shortly if it hasn't already. And I think at the end of the day, the president is doing what needs to be done. Deal with the IRGC, continue to eradicate them, diminish their military capabilities, and at the end of the day, force long-term peace and stability in the region. And for all the GCC nations and even Europe, this is in their best interest as well. And that's what surprised me, that there hasn't been more support for the end state that I think will come out of tomorrow's meeting. So I believe we'll see policy decisions yesterday with serious ramifications.
I don't understand why it is at Camp David. First of all, we've had some pretty lousy weather here the last couple of days, and no one wants to take a helicopter there. So Marine One, I don't know if the president will be going in an SUV or whatever, but the other ones will probably travel by SUV for this road trip, and that takes them sort of out of their work as they're traveling 60 miles there, 60 miles back. But we have very secure rooms at the White House. We have a Situation Room. And so I can't figure out, why Camp David? Do you have any thought on that?
Sure, a couple reasons. One, first off, it reinforces how important this decision is. We're going to go to war, and I don't mean the limited war we've been seeing. This is all-out war. We're going to bring all our resources to bear. So that's number one. You go to Camp David to reinforce how important this is. Number two, to give it the time it needs. They're going to be spending a full day there. And you've been in the White House. It's very compressed. It's a small area. Here, people have time to think. Their staff can work issues. So for a lot of reasons, this is the appropriate place to be for this sort of meeting and for this sort of issue.
Well, I suspect the Iranians are saying that the United States broke the ceasefire because we acted first. But on the other hand, is that what we were trying to protect from is Iran apparently was deploying mine-laying boats in the area. And so that was, to stop them from doing that, to me, seems like a defensive move because I don't think that they were laying mines for any good reasons.
Nothing they do is good. And who cares what they say? I think is the bottom line. Do what's in our best national security interests. And every time we can diminish their capabilities, be it laying mine, be it small attack boats, be it striking their ports and facilities, undermines the legitimacy of the government in Iran. So, okay, we could call offensive, he doesn't do defensive, but we're going to continue to take out all their military capability down to the most tactical level. And that's what this was. Small boats, delivering mines, tactical operations where they harass and shoot at boats. But all of that is fair game. And we should make that a focus of our operations day in, day out. And I believe that's what this meeting at Camp David tomorrow will address.
Well, it's interesting that the president has said, and I don't know the exact number, that we're close to some sort of deal with Iran. Over the weekend, we heard that. But if the part that's not close is the Iranian, there's the nuclear dust or the uranium, the enriched uranium dust, they can make a nuclear bomb. And then we aren't close because Iran says that they will never give that up. So if they never give it up, if we get up to 98%, but they don't give it up, we're not going to have any deal.
That's exactly right. All they do is negotiate. They're professional negotiators. They've never reached a conclusion that worked in our interest or the national security interest of the region or European partners are on. So this is a continuation of that standard operating procedure they've been doing for decades. And now it's coming to an end. They won't give up their nuclear materials. So you can't address that, much less the Straits of Hormuz. So the only way to address this really is to increase the military and reinstate the military campaign and increase your pressure on the government.
Would it be possible to have some military action to make the Strait of Hormuz safe for boats to go through there, for vessels to go through there, and then basically, freeze them out, the rest of the world continue with the sanctions? Because I think, as long as they are not firing nuclear weapons, and as long as we can use the Strait of Hormuz, everything seems pretty safe. And if they can't enrich their uranium because we freeze them out with sanctions, then we have achieved our goal, that they can't get a weapon. So would it be possible to separate out the Strait of Hormuz from the rest of Iran?
Without a doubt, Greta, those are your two must-have situations. Iran never having nuclear weapons and having no control either to demand a surcharge or to strike anything in the Gulf through missiles or drones. So those are irrefutables. And if you achieve those, then you have time to deal with the other issues because there's no threat. We've been saying that for several months. I think the president, his team is aligned, and that's what you're going to see this meeting tomorrow, to now announce the policies that reinforce those two objectives: no nuclear weapon and no threatening commerce through the Straits. So I think you're spot on, Greta, and that's what I believe we'll hear after the meetings at Camp David.
Vice Admiral Robert Harward, thank you, sir.
Thanks. Always good to be with you, Greta.
Always nice to have you. In about 3.5 weeks, President Donald Trump turns 80 years old. Meanwhile, today, President Trump was at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center for his third checkup in 13 months. This visit is described as a preventative visit. It was not urgent, but was previously scheduled. We are awaiting the doctor's reports, but as I said earlier, President Trump says he is in perfect condition. Coming up, Texas Senator John Cornyn is in a hot race tonight. He joins me. Coming up, that when the record continues.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
Immuno 150 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Cholesterol support shouldn't stop at diet and exercise. Meet Human Cholesterol Health Daily, the only cholesterol support supplement to combine these unique, clinically studied forms of ingredients for game-changing cholesterol support. Now available at your nearest Walmart.
If you still have bad breath by lunchtime, your mouthwash isn't working. Smart Mouth is the only mouthwash that prevents bad breath for 24 hours. This is the only mouthwash I recommend. Upgrade your mouthwash to Smart Mouth today and never have bad breath again.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
Finished my chores. Ready for my allowance.
Greenlight is way better than how I got paid for chores. Mowing all those lawns really paid off. That was not radical.
Bring your family into the financial future.
Immunolun 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
Well, that was fast. Last week, Kentucky Republican Congressman Thomas Massie lost his primary to Trump-backed Ed Gallrein. And now, Massie says he's running again. Yesterday, Massie announced, quote, "I filed with FEC for the 2028 House race. This allows me to raise funds to continue my political operations, supporting my position as a current office holder and as a potential candidate for federal office. I've not made a final decision about which office to seek if I run," end quote. Now, while Massie is a thorn in the side of some of the Republican colleagues and he causes some Republican infighting, the Democrats have some of their own infighting. Graham Plattner is a Democrat running for U.S. Senator from Maine. But there's a major controversy surrounding him. Some Senate Democrats have backed him despite his past comments where he endorsed political violence, discredited rape victims, and used derogatory language. He says he made those comments after he left the Army in 2012 and at a time he was struggling with PTSD and depression. That's not all. Plattner had a Nazi-linked tattoo in his chest. He got the tattoo in 2007 when he was in the Marine Corps and on leave in Croatia. He claims he did not know it resembled a Nazi symbol. This past October, he covered that tattoo. Despite that tattoo being covered, it continues to spark outrage. Yesterday, a fellow Democrat spoke out.
I've been clear about Graham Plattner. I find that tattoo and his commentary about it to be personally disqualifying. I hope Maine voters agree with me. I think there would be a mistake for the Democratic Party to think that Graham Plattner's brand of the Democratic Party is what wins us durable majorities throughout this country.
That was Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who is Jewish. In October, a Jewish insider reported Auchincloss was the first Democrat to call on Plattner to drop out of the Maine Senate race. But that was when Governor Janet Mills was still in the race. Over the weekend, Vermont Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders, who's also Jewish, campaigned for Plattner. In the past, Sanders has said there are more important issues than to focus on an old tattoo. And it's a showdown in Texas. Four-term Republican senator from Texas, John Cornyn, is in the political fight of his life. He's up against Texas three-term Attorney General Ken Paxton in tonight's runoff election. Late in the game, President Trump endorsed Paxton. Many believe that boosts Paxton's chances. To give you an idea of just how big this race is, advertising has topped $100 million. That's mostly spent from Cornyn's side, but that giant amount may not be enough to return Cornyn for a fifth term. If the prediction markets are right, tonight, Paxton will run away with this race. What time do polls close? Well, it depends on where you live in the giant state that is 250 times as big as Rhode Island. Polls close at either 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Senator John Cornyn joins me. Nice to talk to you, sir.
Hey, Greta, nice to be with you.
Sir, the voters who haven't voted yet and who may be watching this show or listening just want to know why you. What's the big reason to vote for you over Attorney General Paxton? What would you focus on?
Well, I believe I can win in the general election, which is what elections are all about, against a very dangerous James Tallarico, who's really a wolf in sheep's clothing, who the mainstream media is going to just adoringly cover from now till November, even though he is completely out of step with where I believe most Texans are. If Paxton were the nominee, he'll spend most of his time trying to defend his scandalous record that we are now litigating in the primary. And I think that's going to scare off some independent voters who are going to be necessary to support our nominee. And it's not just me, and it's not just a Senate race. We haven't lost a statewide race since 1994 in Texas on the Republican side. But if Paxton's a nominee, if he does win, which I think is an open question, I think he'll be an albatross around the neck of all the down ballot races, including the 5 new congressional seats that President Trump is depending on to help maintain the Republican majority in the House.
When you say scandalous, are you talking about the situation with his wife, which is, I mean, it's no secret, it's been all over the news, and she chose not to endorse. She's endorsed in Senate in races in Texas for tonight, but just hasn't endorsed you or her husband.
Yeah.
Is that the scandalous part you're talking about?
No, there's so much more. It's the indictment for securities fraud. It's the his senior staff who he handpicked, some of the most conservative lawyers in the country, turned him into the FBI for interfering in a federal investigation of one of his major campaign donors. And that was the basis upon which he got impeached by a Republican-led state House. And he ultimately ended up hanging the Texas taxpayers with a $6.6 million judgment there that he won't have to pay, but the taxpayers will because of his misbehavior. And the list really just goes on and on and on.
Why do you think that President Trump, it didn't happen until actually the 11th hour almost, he just recently decided to endorse, but why, did you have a conversation with President Trump about it, or did he call you and say, I'm going with Paxton, or what impact do you think it'll have on the race?
Well, I've talked to the president on a regular basis, but he did not give me a heads up on this. I think it wasn't so much about me, which means this is different than Kentucky with Thomas Massie or Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, because he's called me a friend and a good man, and I voted with him 99.3% of the time. So this is more, I think, about the president's frustration with the Senate. And as you know, he wants what he wants, and he wants it yesterday. And particularly on something like the Save America Act, which I'm an original co-sponsor of and support wholeheartedly. He wanted to get that done, but we did not have yet the numbers to pass that. So I think he's trying to send a message to the Senate Majority Leader and others that to get in line. But, you know, in the end, Greta, Texans are going to be the ones to choose our leaders here. And I'm well known and I believe well trusted by the Texas electorate. They're all 30, well, maybe not all 32 million of us, but I've served in this position a long time, and I think they trust me. I don't think they can trust Ken Paxton.
You had an interesting tweet that you tweeted that in Texas, under the primary system, is if you didn't vote, for instance, in March, Democrat or Republican, you can vote, or independent, you can vote today. You can cross over if you're a Democrat. If you're an independent, you can. Of course, it means you can't vote in the Democratic primary that's coming up. But so are you calling on Democrats and independents to come vote for you?
Not at all. We only had about 11% of registered voters vote in the Republican primary. So that leaves a whole lot of Republican voters who will vote Republican in November who can now participate in this primary runoff. And that's, you know, I believe that we need more people to exercise their rights, and that, you know, we just passed Memorial Day. For 250 years. People have fought and died to preserve our freedom and our right to self-determination. And all I'm suggesting is that bigger turnouts are good for Texas and they're good for America.
When you're out on the campaign trail, have you heard the topic of Iran coming up, and voters, even Republican voters, disillusioned with the fact that we seem to be doing saber rattling with Iran and maybe even an escalated war?
I think people don't know exactly what is going on. And as you know, that the president said there's negotiations going forward, but nothing's final. For my part, I applaud President Trump's intervention to make sure that the Iranian regime never gets access to a nuclear weapon. That would be catastrophic and be very dangerous. So I applaud that, and also the work that we've done with the Israeli allies to combat these proxy forces that have so much American and other blood on their hands. But I don't think we can leave without the Strait of Hormuz being opened. We can't leave that in the hands of the Iranian regime. And so I hope the president got plans to open the Strait of Hormuz and not depend on the Iranian regime to open it when and if they, as they will. But I don't think we know yet what the final deal is yet. It doesn't sound like there is a final deal.
One last quick question. How fast can you count votes in the big state of Texas? Polls close 8 or 9, depending on where you are Eastern. But how fast? When do you think we'll get the results?
I think probably about that time. Early voting will be announced at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And that'll tell us a lot. That'll be about 60% of the total votes. And then the other 40% will come in from the major metropolitan areas quickly, and then maybe from some of the smaller parts of the state. As you said, we have 254 counties in Texas. It's a big place. And but we are optimistic based on what we've seen so far in early voting.
Senator John Cornyn, thank you very much. As I would say to your opponent, if you're here too, good luck tonight, and we'll be watching. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Greta.
CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me, as well as former Special Assistant to President Biden and former Press Secretary to the First Lady Joe Biden. Michael LaRosa joins me. Matt, since this is your party and this is a big race in Texas, tell me what you think.
In fairness, CPAC has endorsed Ken Paxton, so I want to be have full disclosure. I like John Cornyn. I've gone hunting with John Cornyn. He's actually a really great guy. You said it. I think you can see it in the interview. He's been there 5 terms, won 6 terms. Seems to have lost his fight. He's too many of these guys who were in the Senate for too many decades. They give you the answer that we just don't have the votes to pass the SAVE Act. Well, what are you going to do to get the votes? Like, what are you going to do to convince and make it politically tough for even Republicans who say we don't have to have voter ID with voting? And what do you tell Republicans around the country, right, who say, like, if we don't have voter ID in voting, then you're going to have continuing questions about the results of elections.
Is it his fault? I mean, is it
his fault the Senate's broken? Or
even I can't blame one person.
I guess, and the other question too is that if Texas does vote for Ken Paxton, is they lose a lot of seniority.
Well, sure, but I don't know if that matters as much in the Senate. Do you think it does?
No,
I don't really think it does, but I don't see. First of all, I respect Senator Cornyn. I think he's a good legislator. I don't agree with him on anything, but he's a good legislator.
Does he seem listless to you a little bit? I mean, no passion.
Maybe he's tired. They've been pounding the pavement.
He looked exhausted. His eyes were red. He's clearly in the fight of his life, as you said. But I also don't think that there's this aversion to Paxton that people think. I mean, he was, I think, elected statewide 3 times.
I think he's won 13 elections.
And for whatever reason, 5 million people voted for this guy statewide several times.
Do you mind if I say something there? The one thing I didn't like about what Senator Cornyn said is all the scandals with Paxton. Now, you have his personal scandals. He's getting divorced.
It's not just any old divorce, though. I mean,
he admitted to, or at least he's accused of having affairs.
I think it's a little uglier when you dig a little deeper, and his wife had to vote on his impeachment or not because he's a senator.
Well, hold on, but then you have the second. So we could go through whether or not people get divorced should be allowed to run for office. I kind of feel like
I think they should be.
Whether I like it or not, I think our culture's accepting of failed marriages, right?
I think people who are getting divorced can run for.
But the second piece of this is all this question of, was there corruption while he was the Attorney General? And I happened to watch the impeachment proceedings and then the trial in the state Senate and all of this stuff. I was like, he's going down. All these charges, it looked terrible. Republicans impeached him. And then I watched as these defense attorneys walked through the charges and the defense of those charges. And the Republicans were completely convinced that this was a whole lot of nothing to this. Now, if it had been something, he would have lost that conviction in the state Senate in Texas. Even the charges they accused him, the financial charges, didn't have the proof behind it. This was an attempt by establishment Republicans to get rid of one of the most hard-charging, Trump-loving, MAGA, statewide elected officials in Texas, and it failed.
Michael, your Democratic candidate's likely to be Taricchio.
Yeah.
And how's he going to fare against either Paxton or Cornyn?
And that sort of is my only interest in this contest is that, right? Because everybody in my side believes that if Paxton is the nominee, this is a state that's in play that will force them.
Why?
Because they believe that it's that I don't know. from what I've seen, I don't think Republicans have laid a hand on Tallarico yet.
But if you listen to Matt, that Cornyn's more vulnerable in that situation.
I don't know. I just know my side is excited about Paxton.
Why is that? They're excited about
Paxton. Because they think that political baggage means something.
Yes.
I don't think it does. In Texas, because he's already been elected 3 times statewide after all of these things. The voters there don't really seem to care. They seem to like him for some reason. It doesn't mean he doesn't have political baggage. It comes with a ton, like some of our candidates do, that we'll talk about later in Maine. But look, it might make the race competitive, but I don't think the race is going to be in play.
If you take that John Cornyn was an admirable lawyer, has had an impressive professional career, loves his wife Sandy, they have a beautiful family, and he's like the model Boy Scout husband father. If you take that, but yet he's not willing to get his uniform dirty when it comes to these fundamental questions. I think what the voters have decided, a la Trump, is I'll take the person who maybe hasn't had this.
Who's going to break glass.
Yes, and fight like hell. And we've already made this decision as a party that we've allowed the Democrats to win on almost every major cultural or economic question, the size and scope of government, how effective is the Constitution in our lives. And now we're like, we've had enough. And it ended with the woke DEI crap. And our people said, look, if now they're going to start doing this stuff, we have to elect people that will fight harder than they will fight to destroy the country.
The funny thing is they're going to face the same question. The voters of Maine are going to face the same question that Matt's just posing for the Republicans, the break glass. Who's just going to fight for you? And our Democrats are putting up a guy with a Nazi symbol versus someone like Susan Collins. Republicans don't love Susan Collins.
It is the same. It is the same, isn't it?
It's the same.
It's
thing.
a lot the same. Argument.
But my point is to Democrats is I think we should have some standards. I think the Republic will survive without the likes of people like Graham Plattner.
All right, Matt, Michael, you'll be back in a few minutes, so don't go away. Don't go far, Lisa. Coming up, there's another big race in Texas. It's getting messy. That one, the record continues.
Billy, I need help with the clicker.
Yeah, one second, Grandma. This guy's gonna buy my car.
Billy, you still there?
Okay,
You need Carvana. What's your plate number?
Boss, M-O-V.
Vehicle features, no accidents, right?
No.
Good. Generating offer. Carvana can pick it up tomorrow.
That's an amazing offer. Do you still need help with the clicker?
I'll ask your sister.
Sell your car the easy way with Carvana.
We're down here in Wimberley, Texas, to build a smart home for Dustin Weber.
We want to welcome the Weber family to Wimberley.
Yesterday was just amazing.
The thought that has been put into these smart homes, they've thought of everything that will make his life better.
This home allows me the freedom to experience my children, taking them to bed. This home allows me the freedom to not slip and fall in the bathroom. It is a life-changing experience.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Roofmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free spring roof tune-up with your Roofmax restoration.
I wish I wasn't afraid to smile.
I wish I could get implants.
I wish I knew who to trust.
I'm not looking for another quick fix.
I want a smile I know will last. Clear Choice smiles are made to stand the test of time. They're built by dental implant experts, backed by 20 years of pioneering research and a lifetime warranty on premium arches. Our smiles are built for life. Schedule your free consultation today.
Leaf Filter is America's #1 gutter protection system because it's built right. Leaf Filter is designed to keep debris out of your gutters and water flowing. When it's built right, it shows. That's why it's Homes Approved. It's good to be #1. Always. Schedule your free gutter inspection today.
You can get shades like these for under $30, and they come with lost and broken protection. Our Memorial Day sale is live right now at ShadyRays.com. You don't want to miss it. It's the sale of the summer, so head that way and get yours today.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Memorial Day. Flags are up, grills are hot, and we're celebrating America's heroes. Omaha Steak celebrates with incredible savings, plus 8 free burgers crafted from premium-aged American beef. Military families save even more. omahasteaks.com/TV.
Where's my mother gonna... Oh, no. Is this the episode with the breakup?
Reba, we can't agree on the house.
Y'all need Realtor.com. With over 500,000 new listings every month, you could find the one today. This could be it. Better put a key ring on it. Realtor.com.
The race for Senate is not the only Texas race getting national attention. Why? Because of this candidate's recent comments.
If you are a Zionist, meaning that you believe that you are just entitled to land, or someone's just entitled to land based off of religious beliefs, and that you'll kill all of the Semites for it, then yeah, I think that you're a danger to humanity and belong in prison, especially if you have the political and economic resources to make that happen. And that's how we will get all of the billionaire Zionists in prison.
That's Democrat Maureen Galindo. She's running for Congress in Texas' 35th Congressional District. Tonight's a runoff between Galindo and Johnny Garcia. Whoever wins this runoff will face off in November against the Republican candidate. Matt Schlapp and Michael LaRosa join me. Okay, Michael, this one's yours.
It's not
You
mine.
can
It's a Democratic race. You got a thought?
I don't know what anything to do with it. I just think that just because Democrats get the nomination, or if they do get the nomination, doesn't mean that they have unquestionable support, nor should they have unquestionable support. They still have to answer for these things, and Democrats don't have to support bad Democrats. That we can have standards, we can have principles here, and that's just gross and disgusting talk.
Do you have a thought?
The only Democrats I see that aren't acceptable to the Democratic Party are like pro-life Democrats who can't speak at their convention. Look, I think that a party has to do some policing. There's no question. And it's a hard thing to do. I think this candidate, unfortunately, sounds very mainstream to where a lot of Democrats are on the questions of the Middle East these days.
I don't think so. You know what I think, though,
Too
Matt?
extreme?
No, you know what, Matt, is the people who are really far out of sight get a lot of attention by the media, so it has the appearance that that's the entire
Do you think she's going to win?
The vast majority of Democrats, I saw this with Biden in our primary, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren get all the attention, but
that's true of the conservatives too. If you get some Republicans, you get someone saying something wild.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
We repeat it 10,000 times as though it's to everybody.
The majority of voters are just looking for normal, and some of these people just aren't normal, in my opinion. But they don't represent the entire party.
My only part is the Democratic Party used to be the kind of the center of support of the state of Israel, and that is definitely shifted.
And that's disappointing.
They have definitely abandoned that as part of their.
I'm not part of the pro-Hamas wing of the Democratic Party. I'll just put it that way.
Massie, Kentucky. I'm looking at you.
He's running.
Matt. He's running. What is he running for, though? He doesn't say. He just wants to raise money. He says he can raise money for.
Well, interesting. Let's think about this.
Okay.
So Thomas Massie, 2028. Who won't be president?
Donald Trump.
We would have had this nomination contest to see who's the follow-on to Donald Trump, which is interesting. I kind of realized.
Do you think he's running for president, governor, or Congress in 2028?
He didn't say what he was running for?
No, he didn't say what he was running for.
I mean, people have talked about that he'll be a presidential candidate. Running for president is no longer about becoming the president for most of them. It's just about spiking, right, with your name ID and raising a bunch of money and traveling around the country. My only point is that if he were to run again, I don't know this new person who just got the Republican nomination, but if he were to run again, I wouldn't count him out. I think politics will change a lot over the course of the next several years. I hope we have Donald Trump for many, many years. I love Donald Trump's policies. But a shift is going to happen very dramatically at some point here between now and Election Day, and people will start to talk about publicly what they're talking about privately, which is, for Republicans, what will we do when Donald Trump isn't on the ballot? And it scares a lot of people.
What are you going to do?
I think Democrats need to start figuring out what big ideas they have other than being against Donald Trump. And I think it's really hard to legislate prices and affordability. I know people love that issue, affordability, they like saying the word, but nobody is saying how they're going to make things more affordable. And
I think you know what I think. I think AI is actually a problem. We're going to enter into the 28 race because AI creates jobs, but it loses jobs at a faster pace than it creates, and that gap is very painful to the economy.
And that could be a very bipartisan concern.
But AOC, who I don't tend to overthink much about, but she said something interesting to David Axelrod at the University of Chicago. She said people underestimate her ambition, which is not necessarily elected office or not necessarily a title. It's changing the healthcare system for good to universal healthcare or, Medicare for all kind of things. She thinks that's her legacy. That's scarier to me than somebody who just wants to run for president.
People, when I say this, people say I'm nuts, but I think that AOC is likely to be your candidate, the Democratic Party, because when she gets out there and speaks, and it's the same thing that President Obama had. So she's quite inspirational in her speech. And I don't know, maybe she can come up with some new ideas, but I would not count her out.
I'm not counting her out.
She's
very charming. She's very, and she gives a good speech. She gives very
a great
Obama-esque.
speech.
Also, the other question is, if not her, who? That's the other question you have to start asking.
Lots of people.
You got Rahm Emanuel?
Are we going to do a replay? Kamala Harris is leading all the polls. Do we really think that could happen?
So was John Kerry 20 years ago. It's not going to happen.
John Kerry got your nomination.
I'm talking about after he lost it. You don't get a second chance in our party. You guys
thought the facelift would work,
You're going to have a bloodbath in the Republican Party for the nomination?
I would use a different descriptor, but I think we're going to have a very wide-ranging group of candidates, much like when Ronald Reagan was done with 8 years. Everybody loved Ronald Reagan and the Republican Party. They all wanted to be his successor, and we had, I think they called them the 8 dwarfs or whatever in the beginning, but we had a lot of people, almost a dozen people, run for the presidency, and it was a barn burner.
And?
We're going to do the same thing
but
again.
The Vice President
and the Vice President won, so that's good for J.D. Vance. If history repeats itself, he'll come out. But I think J.D. Vance would be a better general election candidate if he went through a process like that. He's very young. You don't want to look like this was handed to you, and that's what Ronald Reagan understood. If it looks like I hand it to someone and they don't earn it, that could be bad for them politically.
I think it's always tough for the vice president to.
Always tough.
And it was bad for Kamala Harris to inherit the nomination the way she did.
I think she was.
She didn't inherit it. She grabbed it. She caused a fumble. She didn't just.
I think she was fortunate. It was a short race because I think she had more wind behind her sails after the Democratic convention.
I do too.
And it went straight downhill from there. The longer she ran, the worse it got for her.
I couldn't agree with you.
So you think a second candidacy of Kamala Harris will pick up where it left off?
No, I think if she announces the night before that she's better off than if she's tested. If she's tested, she's got a problem because she didn't do well on the test the
kick the
first
tires.
time.
Yeah.
Anyway, Matt Schlapp, Michael LaRosa, thank you both.
Yeah.
The Ebola outbreak in Africa is impacting America on a big sports event that's about to happen here in the United States, the World Cup. Right now, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there are more than 900 suspected Ebola cases and more than 200 deaths from this Ebola outbreak. To protect America from this Ebola outbreak, the United States is restricting travel from Congo. But consider this. Congo's soccer team is set to play in the World Cup here in the U.S., but due to the Ebola outbreak and travel restrictions, fans from Congo might be out of luck. So the DRC is now asking FIFA to refund World Cup tickets bought by fans who are now unable to enter the United States. It's not clear whether FIFA will grant those refunds. Next month, 11 American cities are hosting World Cup games. That includes Houston's NRG Stadium. Houston's where on June 17th, you guessed it, Congo will play its first soccer match. The U.S. has told FIFA, Congo's government, and Congo's soccer team that the players must isolate for 21 days before entering the U.S. The team is currently training in Belgium away from the Ebola outbreak. Coming up, a popular YouTuber with a history of being nasty is now in big trouble. That when the record continues.
Tonight's Newsmax lineup is brought to you by Crown Atlantic. Protect what matters most with fast, affordable life insurance. Visit lifeforless.com.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com. Hey, I'm Dr. Drupinski. I've been a physician for 4 decades. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time, and Fatty 15 is one product that actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. A brilliant veterinarian realized that dolphins get disease much like humans. She looked at what predisposed to those problems, isolated the molecule, gave it to the animals, they didn't get the problem. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. Cell health equals physical health. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consult are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Do you know who your kids are listening to? Well, we have talked about this YouTuber before. He has nearly 2 million subscribers. His name is Hassan Piker, and he has spread dangerous anti-Semitic rhetoric. And now he's in big trouble. Piker has been subpoenaed about a trip to Cuba. Senior correspondent John Huddy joins me. John?
Yeah, well, Greta, federal officials served Hassan Piker, who you just mentioned, and Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin subpoenas as part of a wider probe into possible violations of U.S. sanctions and support potentially for the Cuban regime. Now, the subpoenas seek communications, financial, and logistical information about their trip to Cuba back in March. The 34-year-old Piker and 73-year-old Benjamin are among more than 40 other Americans under investigation by the Treasury Department's Foreign Assets Control. Now, Piker, a self-described socialist and Marxist, often espouses anti-American, pro-Marxist and communist views online to his following, and is known for his radical views, along with Benjamin and other Code Pink members, often seen roaming the halls of Congress, harassing people with their anti-Israel and anti-American rhetoric, for that matter, and extreme leftist views. Piker admitted Sunday that the investigation, quote, is not great for him and the others involved. Piker was also seen in a picture with Jody Evans, also a Code Pink co-founder, during the March Cuba trip. Now, she's the wife of a guy named Neville Roy Singham. He's a wealthy businessman who Piker has even acknowledged has pumped hundreds of millions of dollars into Marxist and communist organizations in the United States, including the People's Forum in New York City, which is closely aligned with the Chinese Communist Party, as is Singham. This is well documented. Now, the People's Forum has also incited protests and riots nationwide against Israel and America's democratic ideals. We see that to this day. Piker, Greta, as he often does, cast himself as a victim in all this of political persecution and a coordinated campaign, as he said on his show Sunday, by, quote, pro-Israel activists and the, quote, fascist Trump administration, which he has repeated multiple times during his often profanity-laced online rants. Medea Benjamin, meantime, admitted she is guilty, she said, of, quote, loving the Cuban people. Greta.
John Huddy, thank you. Coming up, does Mitt Romney owe someone a big apology? That when the record continues.
Immunoline 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
A better heart health supplement. That's what we all want. That's why for 8 years now, I've relied on this heart powder. It's Super Beets, and I swear by it.
Super Beets is the original #1 selling beet brand for healthy blood pressure support. The only cardiologist-recommended beet brand that's also trusted by over 40 national championship-winning pro and college sports teams for cardio-powered energy.
For cardio results you can feel, the only brand I trust is Super Beets.
Try Super Beets today at human.com.
Sensitive mouth and gums? Ever heard of Closest mouthwash? Your dentist and hygienist have. They know Closest is ultra gentle for sensitive mouths with non-burning mouthwashes that freshen breath, improve gum health, and strengthen teeth. Closest, the gentle mouthwash for sensitive mouths.
My paycheck was just deposited into my Greenlight account.
Greenlight is so convenient. You know, we had to use a vacuum tube.
Where is it going?
Bring your family into the financial future.
In America, we believe in hard work, family, and taking care of our own. That's why SafeStep walk-in tubs are proudly designed, built, and assembled in the USA, in the heart of Tennessee, by more than 300 hardworking Americans.
My name is Michelle Johnson. Lamination is where we put the fiberglass, resin, and gel coat on the actual product.
Skilled craft professionals building every tub with precision, care, and pride. With a low step-in design, built-in safety features, and soothing therapeutic jets, SafeStep helps you stay comfortable, confident, and in control.
My name is Angela Peters. We make sure everything is as perfect as it can be.
When you choose SafeStep, you're not just investing in your home, you're supporting American families and American jobs. Call now for your free in-home consultation and ask about our special offer. SafeStep walk-in tubs, made in Tennessee, made for you.
Before Apoquel Chewable for allergic itch, giving dogs pills was a battle of wits.
Oh, Maria, I'm wise to your foolish game.
Is it gone?
Totally gone.
Relief for itchy dogs can be easier. Apoquel, the trusted #1 treatment for allergic itch, is available in a tasty chewable that works fast.
May cause worsening of existing parasitic skin infestations, serious infections, or pre-existing cancers. New neoplasias have been observed. Do not use in dogs under 12 months of age with serious infections or in breeding, pregnant, or lactating dogs.
Ask your vet for Apoquel Chewable.
Do it!
Immunoline 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
A new warning from Russia. Russia is telling the United States to evacuate its diplomats and American citizens from Kyiv. The Kremlin is planning more heavy strikes in Ukraine's capital. Foreign correspondent Shelby Wilder is in London with the very latest. Shelby?
Hi, Greta. Yeah, during a call on Monday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told Secretary of State Marco Rubio that Russia is beginning what it called systematic and consistent strikes on facilities and decision-making centers in Kyiv, which it claims are tied to the Ukrainian military and government. Moscow said it formally warned the United States about its planned attacks and urged foreign diplomats and foreign citizens to flee the Ukrainian capital, including staff at the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv. Today, the EU summoned Moscow's top diplomat in Brussels in response to the Kremlin's threats. Meanwhile, China called for de-escalation and renewed dialogue. This warning from the Kremlin came just a day after Russia launched a massive overnight assault on Kyiv, and that included striking schools, a market, museums, offices, and residential buildings. 4 people were killed and at least 91 were injured. Speaking during a recent visit to India, Marco Rubio said the war needs to come to an end, but acknowledged that peace efforts, peace talks between Ukraine and Russia have stalled with the U.S. as a mediator, and he said that no further negotiations were currently scheduled between the two sides. And Russia's latest warning signals a sharp escalation in more than 4 years of Russia's full-scale war, with the Kremlin now openly vowing to intensify attacks on Kyiv, which again sits far from the front lines as President Vladimir Putin appears increasingly emboldened. Greta?
Shelby Wilder, thank you very much. Way back in 1961, President John F. Kennedy said this about the moon, something no one thought was then possible, but the nation was excited about what he said.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
And Kennedy was right. By 1969, Apollo 11 landed on the moon, and our NASA astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to ever step foot on the moon. Then, 40 years later, in 2012, then Republican presidential candidate Newt Gingrich made a similar promise on the campaign trail.
By the end of my second term, we will have the first permanent base on the moon, and it will be American.
Well, this didn't go over very well with his fellow Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney. During a Republican presidential debate in 2012, Romney mocked Gingrich's plan.
If I had a business executive come to me and say they wanted to spend a few $100 billion to put a colony on the moon, I'd say you're fired.
Others followed suit in mocking Gingrich, as though we collectively lost our nation's spirit or sense of can-do. Now, flash forward 14 years after Gingrich's comment in 2012, and today in 2026, Gingrich's idea is not so far-fetched. NASA made this announcement.
America is returning to the moon. We are working alongside our many international and commercial partners to leverage the incredible capabilities from commercial industry to build a moon base. We are discussing 3 moon-based missions and a series of additional awards, with more missions to be announced in the months ahead.
It looks like Romney and others might owe Gingrich an apology, if not done so already. And remember when we told you that Trump was hosting a cabinet meeting tomorrow in Camp David? Well, now Trump says, quote, based on the possible bad weather conditions tomorrow, we will be having our cabinet meeting in the White House, and we will be postponing the cabinet trip to Camp David. Thank you for your attention to this matter, end quote. Actually, it's probably not a huge surprise that the president issued that, because the weather is lousy here. No one wants to fly in Marine One from Washington to Camp David or even drive in an SUV. So probably no surprises we discussed at the top of the show. Coming up, a new viewer. I will explain that when the record continues.
Closed captioning by America Tax Group. Stop IRS and state collections. Free consultation. Call now.
America Tax Group is the nation's leading tax firm that has helped millions of taxpayers resolve penalties, remove liens, and stop wage garnishments. If you're dealing with IRS or state tax issues, don't wait. Call now.
You're told to optimize, to hack. There's always a promise of a better you. But what if you were never meant to be fixed? Your biology knows how to thrive. It just needs a reminder. Armor Colostrum reawakens that brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival. This time, remember what you're made of.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed. And you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
Welcome to Roland Garros.
No place makes you feel so right.
Carlos Alcaraz reigns in Roland Garros.
I love Paris.
Incredible.
Oh, why do I love Paris?
Oh, beautiful.
Because my love is near.
Coco has conquered the play.
I love that Paris.
Satellite internet that's fast, reliable, and installed by professionals. For work, for play, for every day. Available anywhere you call home. Visit Viasat.com/internet now or call 833-8Viasat to sign up today.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Think you need a new roof? Think again and save thousands. We'll help you put off the high cost of a roof replacement for at least 5 years.
Or 10.
Or sometimes even 15.
We're America's most trusted roofer because we always try to save your roof rather than replace it.
We'll restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a new one. But don't wait. If your roof loses too much protective coating, it's too late. Call now or scan the code and we'll give you an assessment of your roof for free.
Meet Gypsy Pumpkin. So handsome, isn't he? I'm showing his picture and giving him a shout out because his owners, Bailey and Max Kroll, have sent me this picture and they said he watches our show. I'm glad that Gypsy Pumpkin watches and is a fan of the show. I'm sure that Dr. Marty, who's a sponsor of the show very often and runs ads on our shows, would also like to know that Gypsy Pumpkin is a fan. And don't forget, I have a new podcast called Greta Wire. You'll like it. And tonight I'm posting, right after the show, I'm going to post one with Mike Gilbert. You may not know his name, but if you follow the O.J. Simpson murder trial, and that murder was 32 years ago, can you believe it? Time really flies. Mike Gilbert was never called to the witness stand, and Mike Gilbert was O.J. Simpson's closest associate. He knew all O.J.'s secrets. He knows so much behind the scenes. It's unbelievable. So make sure you tune into Greta Wire. You can see it on your favorite podcast app, and make sure you watch Ed Henry. He starts right now.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.